Okay, welcome to our Q&A this Thursday night. This is Gardening with William DeMille, and we are going to be discussing all kinds of fun things. Tonight, we're going to talk about gardening in the summertime and some of the questions that people have about that. This is where we talk about all kinds of things that have to do with farming and ranching, livestock, the Georgic tradition, soil health, education, and the whole purpose of this is to help you have the very best garden of your entire life. So just a quick announcement for those of you who like to get on live. The next 2 weeks, we will not be doing this because I will be at Monticello College in southern Utah teaching them a seminar. So I will be away from Clover Valley for 2 weeks, but there will be plenty of people here in Clover Valley if you need to come and get something or whatever. So we will be back though. So just 2 weeks and then we will be back on our live evenings. And a quick reminder, these are the ways that I help you grow food. We've got 9 things we do, and the main thing right now is my book. The book has been out for a couple of months now. It's ready for order, and I'm getting a box this week, and I'll be sending it out to those of you who've ordered one from me. So that will be pretty exciting. Our 17-week students have been here for 1 month, so they've got 3 months to go, and they had their oral examinations today, and they all did fantastic. We have a great group of young people who are becoming literate in ecology, which is one of the major problems in our world today, is overall ecological illiteracy. And it's nobody's fault other than the fact that we don't study things very much. Okay, so summer boot camp is coming up August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Tell your friends and family and spread the word. We already have some people signed up. This is going to be a great event. This will be focused on planting for our fall gardens to feed us throughout the winter. That's what summer boot camp will be. Because at the beginning of August, that's time to plant your fall gardens, to get all that going. So that is that, and we're going to go right into questions here. So these are some questions that were asked to me this week, and actually quite a few of them I got asked today. So how to tell when watermelon is ready to pick? Watermelons are ready to pick when the first tendril on the stem from the fruit dries up and turns yellowish brown. We say it turns brown, but it's not actually brown. It just goes from green to a dried up yellow dead color. So if you're looking at a watermelon plant, along the stem, you're going to have leaves, you're going to have tendrils, and you will have fruits that come off of that stem. And right next to the watermelon, there will be a leaf and there will be a tendril. A tendril is just a little stem that's maybe 1 to 2 inches long, and they're curly like a pig's tail. And when it dries up, you are ready to pick your watermelon. So that's the best way to know if the fruit is actually ready or not. So another good question, especially for this time of year, because garlic is ready at this time of year. How to tell when garlic is ready to pick? Almost every summer, people send me pictures. They text me pictures or email me pictures, and they say, my garlic is dying, what's wrong? And it has never been a fact of garlic dying. The garlic was ready to harvest. Garlic will dry up, the leaves turn yellow, and then they turn like a dead, dried, really light yellow, like a completely dried out plant. When that happens, your garlic is ready. And when you dig it up, you will have a finished, full-grown garlic clove. So as soon as all the leaves lose their green color and they turn a yellowish color, and they begin to dry on the ends, but the stalk or the stem of the garlic is still green, that is the perfect time to pick it. If you wait until the stalk or the stem is completely dry, what happens is it's still fine to pick it, but if you want to do anything creative with your garlic, like make a garlic braid, then it's not going to work because the stem is too brittle and it will break. And a lot of people like to braid their garlic to hang it in the kitchen. So it is perfectly fine and appropriate to pick that garlic when the leaves are dead, but the stem is still green. So pick it and weave whatever you want to do with it, and then hang it up where it will be dry. So that's the story on garlic. How to tell when cantaloupe is ready to pick. You've got to get down on the cantaloupe level, on your hands and knees, and smell the cantaloupe. And if it smells like a ripe cantaloupe, then it is ready to pick. So this is unfortunate because all of the cantaloupes in the grocery stores were picked before their sugar content was high enough that they smell good, because that gives them much longer shelf life. So in your own home garden, when you're growing your own cantaloupe, you can let them ripen for a week or two longer and just wait until they smell super yummy through the skin, and then they are ready to pick. And the flavors will be much better, much more wonderful. And the fruit is a little softer. If you like your cantaloupe to be crunchy, then it is not ripe and you have been educated by the grocery store. But that's fine. If you prefer it that way, it's okay. But their sugar content is not where it will be. So if you want the super mouth-watering, most rich and delectable, glorious flavors, you want to wait until they are soft, not to touch the fruit, but in your mouth they're soft and not crunchy to the teeth. And that smell of the skin is what you're after. Next question, why didn't my corn and green beans ever come up? I've got this question a lot over the years. Usually the reason corn or green beans don't come up is because there was a problem in your soil and you had fungus that was eating the seeds before they made it out of the ground. A lot of times those little seeds will germinate. The root of the seed will be going down into the ground, and that's called the radicle scientifically, but you don't need to worry about that. But that radicle goes down in the ground, and when that happens, if you have a lot of the disease-causing fungus, we often call those oomycetes, but those little guys will start attacking and decompose a lot of seeds, but quite often corn and green beans. And then people think they're a bad gardener. It doesn't really mean that. It just means you need to work on your soil health. The answer to this for generations, at least decades, since the 1950s, has been to use a fungicide. And so if you've ever bought corn seed or a bean seed that was super pink, it's because it's been treated with a fungicide. And so those pink seeds are just to help it so that it can germinate and get growing and get enough strength that the bad fungus won't eat it up. So that's what's happening with that. When you're building great soil health, you don't really want to use those fungicides that the seeds are treated with. But sometimes if you're raising food, I don't think it's wrong. In fact, I have a garden this year that I actually did use some treated corn seed in, because I know for a fact that there are disease-causing fungus there, but it was a nice place to put a big patch of corn. So I did choose to get some treated seed for that purpose. But you just have to realize anytime you use that type of a man-made input, it's something that you use now to grow a food crop, but you don't necessarily want to be addicted to for the rest of your life, because it causes problems in the future. So use it when it's appropriate, if needed, but don't always use it, because it's better for the entire ecosystem if we don't. Okay, the next question is, how long does it take sunflowers to come up? You should see your sunflowers coming up within 1 to 2 weeks. Now, it's always hard because people always say, how long does it take? And then fill in the blank to come up. And they're with the perfect conditions for each particular species, there is an exact amount of days. If the moisture is perfect, if the oxygen is perfect, if the microbes are perfect, and if the temperature, and temperature is the biggest one, if all those are perfect for the particular species, then we can predict it to the day of when they'll come up. But in the real world, those factors are never perfect. So quite often somebody will say, how long does it take carrots to come up? And I say, oh, it can take up to 2 weeks, 8 to 10 days, and it'll, and they'll be coming up. And I've had people say, well, that's not true. It doesn't take 2 weeks. I've had them up in 5 days, which is true. I've had carrots come up in 5 days too. Usually it takes about 2 weeks to see your carrots coming up, around the 10-day mark. So, it's super hard to give a good answer on how long it takes anything to come up because there are so many variables. So what you need to do is when you plant stuff, leave a mark in the ground exactly where you planted it so that you can be checking on it and you know exactly where to look out there where you're seeding your stuff. And of course, if you have it in a pot or a plug tray in a greenhouse, then it's really obvious to know where it is. But if you're out on a vast field, it's harder to know. So it's nice to mark things so you can tell. What kind of seeds to buy? Should I get heirlooms? This is a 6-hour conversation, and I'm going to do it in probably 1 to 2 minutes. If you want to grow a lot of abundant food, normally don't get heirlooms. Heirlooms were bred a long time ago, a long ways away, and they have very little disease and pest resistance to your local climate. They are not adapted to the conditions where you live. That's one of the reasons they're an heirloom, is they came from a long ways away, a long time ago. So it's better to have seeds that are adapted to your local conditions other than heirlooms. And when I tell people that, almost 100% of the time, they immediately come back and say, and they have an argumentative tone in their voice, and they say, but I want to be able to save seeds. Which is true. You can certainly save seeds from heirlooms, but you can save seeds from open pollinated plants. You can save seeds from hybrids, which nobody believes. You can save seeds from anything that makes a seed and replant it. See why this is a 12 or 15-hour conversation? I don't think I can do it in 2 minutes. If you want to get seeds that you can save seeds from, you need to get my book and read it. And then you need to get Joseph Lofthouse's book and read that one, because it talks about how to breed your own seeds and how simple it can be in most cases. And it explains when it's complicated. And it spells it out very easily so that you can understand this whole seed confusion. Now, don't get me wrong. I really love heirlooms. But if your purpose is to grow a lot of food and you plant an heirloom tomato, you're going to get 3 or 4 tomatoes off of a great big giant plant compared to 15 or 20, 30 tomatoes off of a different type of tomato other than an heirloom. Heirlooms are generally not as productive. They should be, so we need to be creating our own heirlooms through our own breeding programs. Okay, what do we do when the garden is flooded? If you have a flooded garden, and this year many people in the West are having flooded gardens because we've had a 20-year drought cycle, and this year in many of the mountain states, we have a lot of water tables that have risen significantly, and there's a lot of flooded gardens nowadays, like right now. And people are not knowing what to do. First of all, you need to drain your garden. Dig some trenches downhill out of the garden so the water can escape. And if you live, let's say, on the Missouri River or east, you experience flooded gardens every spring. That's why it is popular to have raised beds in the east. Raised beds is because it rains in the springtime. That is the purpose of a raised bed, is to drain the garden. In the west, people still have a lot of raised beds. So if you have a raised bed this year, fantastic. You probably don't have a flooded garden. So I could say more about that, but I think that's enough. Okay, the last question here. I live at high elevation in Utah. My tomatoes won't ripen. What's wrong? My neighbors ripen. Why not mine? My first answer to that, without more information, is you probably are raising an heirloom, or you have a variety of tomato that grows too long. A lot of people love Roma tomatoes. I love Roma tomatoes. I do not grow Roma tomatoes because I have an 80-day growing season, and it takes Romas 100 days to ripen. Okay? So if you want to have ripe tomatoes, before you order your tomato seed, get the tomato seed that has the short ripening dates. So a nice big slicing tomato that is an early tomato would be an early girl. They will ripen for you much quicker than, say, a big beef. They're both a big red slicing tomato, but one takes a lot longer than the other. So you need to know how long it takes your tomatoes to grow. The other thing that will help your tomato to grow quicker and to produce fruit and ripen quicker is if you properly prune your tomatoes. And you can't just cut off a bunch of leaves. That's not pruning. That is mangling your plant. You have to prune them properly so that they will respond and grow fruits and ripen them quickly. So I prune a lot of my tomatoes because we do have a short growing season here. So why do the neighbors ripen? Because they probably have a variety that is ripening. It's just the days to maturity are much less than the ones you're choosing. That is what I would guess. There could be many other factors, but those are the most common ones. Okay, I'm going to stop my screen share here and go ahead and ask me your questions, those of you who are on live, and we can discuss your gardens a little bit.
How do you prune tomatoes?
You watch my Patreon videos. There's some coming out. I just filmed them the other day. So I have the videos on that. So you can see that. It'll be coming out. I'm not sure which day it comes out, but in the next week or so, there's a good video on pruning tomatoes. And there's old ones in there too. If you need to know right now, you could go to Patreon and type in tomatoes, and it should bring up the videos from the prunings, the tomatoes I've pruned in the past, because I have made other videos.
Cool, thanks.
So if you're not a Patreon member, that's okay. I'll explain it really quick. You have a stem that comes up, and then you're going to have a leaf stem that comes off of it. And then you're going to have a blossom stem that also comes off of the main stalk. So you have one main stalk coming up, and you're only going to have two other stalks. They're either going to be leaves or blossoms. Don't take the blossom stems off, and don't take the leaf stems off. So what do you take off? Right between the leaf stem and the main shoot, there will be a brand new tiny little plant that comes out in between those. You pick those off and take them all off, but never remove the top one. If you remove the top one, your plant will stop growing. So only remove the ones that are down the stem a ways. So I always wait until the plant has 5 or 6 leaf stems, and then it's obvious to know where the little ones are, and we call those suckers, but you can just pick those off. So that's how you prune it.
So I'd like to go back to garlic.
Okay.
Is now all right at time to plant garlic? I
Oh,
guess when I'm
You never
What?
plant garlic at this time of year. You want to plant your garlic right before winter. So you're talking about northern Utah. So you're going to be planting your garlic in probably late October.
Well, my what I'm trying to do is get variety of crops into my garden.
Yeah. Okay,
just don't
John,
do
thanks.
garlic.
Yeah, thanks for the context. Go ahead and go to the grocery store, buy a clove of garlic and plant it. And it'll start growing. Since that's what you're doing and why you're doing it, go ahead.
Yeah,
That's a
so
good
it
idea.
won't be harvestable though.
Oh,
It won't harvest.
yeah, it'll try to do its thing. It'll suffer through the summertime, and it will give you another plant family, which is good. As you know, it might be better to just plant a bunch of green onions than the garlic, because the green
Okay.
onions are they're the same plant family as the garlic, and they're actually going to give you a harvestable crop.
Okay.
So that might be a little more appropriate as far as food production.
Okay. And so is there anything that I shouldn't plant onions with?
No.
Plant it with anything, everything.
Yep.
Strawberries particularly.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay.
The allium family is the onion and garlics, and they do very good with strawberries.
Okay. Well, talk about corn and beans. I guess mine are probably flooded out.
How long have they been planted?
Well, I've got sparse. Some are coming up, some are not. And so maybe I need to be patient.
How wet is your soil? Is it high water table mess like I was talking about this year?
Yeah, it is. It's it keeps raining.
Yep.
And of course, I guess it's time to stop irrigating if it rains.
Yep. At this time last year, I was watering my greenhouse 3 days a week for about an hour. Like the sprinklers and drip hose were on for an hour, 3 days a week. I have not watered my greenhouse for like 2-3 months because the water table is so high that I've actually built a trench down both sides of the greenhouse, and the water is coming out and just pouring out on the ground. So yeah, it's very wet.
Okay. All right. So
don't.
I guess tomorrow I'll start digging a trench.
That's good. Yeah, dig a trench so that water can get out, and we'll go ahead and replant your beans and your corn.
Okay.
Where, don't kill the plants that are growing.
Yeah.
Just go in there and stick a little hole in the ground, and then poke new seeds in.
Okay.
And don't water them.
And don't water them.
Yeah, don't water them when you plant them, because if that soil is that saturated, there's plenty of moisture to grow them. If you water them, then that's going to stimulate your bad fungus to grow and start eating them. So even if it seems a little dry, don't water. With high water table, don't water.
And so part of my problem is that I have compacted soil that, it's not, it's first year soil. So it's, so I'm adding things to it to make it eventually a good soil.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So the water just pools on top of it.
Yeah. Yep. It's too wet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everywhere in North America is too wet right now, I think. I mean, I don't know that. I haven't been everywhere, but it's pretty wet. So,
Okay, sounds good.
okay, perfect. Okay, anybody else have questions?
Okay.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask one of those questions. This ranch of yours, how many acres do you have?
It's 20,000.
I guess that makes it a ranch.
If size matters, yeah.
Okay.
And-
So
Sorry.
can uh we've mentioned before we're moving up to Idaho, and we have our little about 5 acres worth of old pasture that has not had livestock on it for at least a couple years, probably, I think. And so we've done more walking on it, and I took pictures of all the plants that are growing on it right now, which are, according to the app, mostly noxious weeds, according to the app. And we know there's a lot of goat heads because we see them and have stepped on them. So when we get there, we've been trying to formulate the plan. And we did buy a bunch of the dry pasture seed that we're saving to put out in the fall, because we haven't been there to do anything to help it germinate. So we didn't want to put it out and make a big bird feeder out of the property. So I guess that the question I want to ask is, I think that our plan right now will be, we're going to try to connect with some arborists and get them to dump a bunch of wood chips in the area so that we can start putting that a lot of places. And so we're going to choose an area for our garden to start out. And in that area, some of the things that we've gathered have been to just, I don't know, because we're coming on, a dry couple of months with nothing going on, but should we put down cardboard now and put a bunch of wood chips on it and water it, a couple times a week until fall? Or what should we do to try to get started with our garden plot when I don't know that we can really plant anything in it right now?
Yeah, that's a good idea. In fact, the best gardens with that method are ones that you start where you have a long time before you get your plants in.
Mhm.
Sometimes the plants can struggle the first season when you just put down the cardboard and then you put your detritus on top, whatever it is, compost, wood chips, whatever. And you put the plants in it immediately. Sometimes it takes them a while to really do great. So it's a good idea to go ahead and do that now. Keep it watered, keep it together, try to protect it from, any kind of an animal destroying it and that kind of thing, protect it from the wind. I'd go ahead and plant something in it, but nothing you're really counting on.
Mhm.
And then next spring, it will be conditioned to a point where you'll probably have a pretty great garden.
Mhm. So if we mixed in like some, I don't know, if we're planning to put our dry pasture land mix all around pretty much everywhere once fall comes and the rain starts, would we put some of that in the wood chips that we put on our cardboard to, no? What would you put there?
No, you don't want to do that because those are going to be perennial plants. So you want to put something that's an annual so
Okay.
that it dies out when the cold of winter comes, or
Okay.
even if it's something that overwinters, it dies out the next summer.
Uh-huh.
So your pasture mix, those are going to be things that you plant, and then they're going to last for 20 years or longer. And that's what a perennial is. It lasts forever. The annuals are something that you plant this year and it dies before next year.
Mhm.
So because if you put your pasture mix in it, then you're just going to have a gigantic weed problem. And then
Okay.
you're starting over with more cardboard to cover it the next
Uh-huh.
year. So you
Oh, I
don't
see.
want to get any of those seeds on that area where the garden is going to be.
Okay. Okay.
So you did ask what would you put on there? How soon are you going to start this? Did you say like in a month or two from now, or?
A month or two. Yeah, probably about a month or two. It depends on when our house sells here.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so
Month,
you
I
don't
guess.
know for sure. So yeah, you're just getting a really good start on next year is really
Right.
what you're doing. So get your
Right.
cardboard down to kill the plants that are there now. Get it covered with 8 to 10 inches of whatever you can get. And then if it's straight wood chips, add a little bit of some other stuff to it if you can. Some
Yeah,
compost
we
or
have a few
peat moss.
bags of chicken manure we bought last year.
Yeah, that'd work.
We
That's
mix
good.
that in and just let
Yeah.
that sit with it.
Yeah, and then let that decompose over this fall and the winter. And then next spring you'll be raring to go. It'll be a very happy garden. Now I always talk about the principle of keeping a living root in the soil, but that's for long term. But where you're starting out, don't worry about that right now. Get the
Mhm.
living roots in next year when you first plant.
Yeah. What do you mean size?
So we're trying to figure out how big to start the first garden. So we start smaller better so we get it more manageable. What 8 by 10, 8 by 20, what 30 by 40?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would say start small, learn from the experience. When things are working good, because there will be some bumps along the way, because it's a learning curve like anything in life. So when you kind of fine tune it over the next year or two, then you expand to whatever you need. So yeah, 10 by 12,
Just
8
start.
by 14, whatever. Just a small garden where you can grow a bunch of lettuce and a few cabbages and some tomatoes, whatever it is you like to eat. So yeah,
We'll just start throwing out cardboard and see where we end up, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Don't go 200 by 900.
There you go.
That'll
No.
overwhelm you, and you won't like gardening anymore. So, and that is a mistake people make when they start out. Often they go too big. So,
All right.
Okay, so we've had at least 4 people who know we're moving there, who have been doing their land, their homestead, their garden for years, pressuring us to rototill everything and then next year start not tilling.
yeah, join the club. That's what everybody says.
Uh-huh.
And why did they want you to rototill? To kill the
Because
weeds?
they said that the soil in our area is too compact. You won't have anything growing unless you do at least one till. But I figured that if we put our cardboard out, we put our detritus on right now, we are watering it now, we get into the fall. I mean, I think it's going to decompose into a situation where we can plant next year just fine.
All right, here's what I want you to do. Put down your cardboard, put your 8 inches of detritus on there, and plant it thicker than you can imagine with daikon radishes.
Okay.
Just get a big bag of daikon radishes. Just scatter them on there like salt and pepper.
Okay.
Water that a lot. They're going to come up way too thick.
Okay.
Okay. As they're growing this fall, it'll be fun to watch them. You could pick a few of them out so that they're about maybe 4 to 6 inches apart. So a grid like a chessboard, okay? So 4 to 6 inches apart, and then let those ones get as big as they want to. The winter will kill them.
Okay.
And but their tap roots will go way down in the ground and help to break up your compaction.
Okay.
Hmm.
Next spring, plant daikons again, but this time just put a daikon with every other plant that you're planting. So if you
Okay.
put in a tomato transplant, put a daikon radish 6 inches from it and let it grow.
Okay. Okay.
So
Right.
do that,
Okay.
because those radishes can get really heavy, 5, 7, 8, 10 pounds.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, we're talking 2 feet long and 6 inches around. They're big old massive things. No, they
Wow.
probably won't get quite that big under your circumstances, but that they have the massive taproot that goes way in the ground to break up those hard pounds.
Okay.
Now, after saying that, it's always important to listen to the wisdom of your neighbors, even
Mhm.
when they contradict me. They could be right.
Uh-huh.
If you have super heavy clay soils that have been tilled over the years, and now they are as hard as a rock, like concrete,
Mhm.
it's kind of true. But the thing that I disagree with is that if you have a super compacted soil and you till the soil to loosen it, it doesn't loosen it after 3 months. It's back to the same compaction. That's
Ah.
just the way it always works in the soil health world. When we go out with all our tools and do all the tests, it seems like it would help at first, but it doesn't.
Ah.
The truth is counterintuitive.
Okay.
So I'd never recommend that.
Okay, well, we'll try the radishes. That sounds fun.
Yeah,
Oh,
you could put radishes and kale in there. Do you guys eat kale?
I like it.
She does.
Well, it's something that you could pick throughout the cold weather too. As long as
Okay.
you don't have snow on the ground, you could pick it because you can't kill it with frost. The thing that kills it in the winter is just the snow smashes it down and then it dies.
Okay.
All right.
so a couple of questions related to that, then, William. My garden is it's looking like it's going to be a 40 by 20, and I've got about a 20 by 20 area that I don't have anything to plant in it. So would you suggest then that I put daikon radishes in that, just for the sake of having something growing there, and kale?
Yeah. Daikon
And
radishes, collards, kale, mustard. Those are
where?
good. Those are good crops to help that soil get conditioned.
Okay, so that's kale, mustard, radishes, and collards.
And turnips.
Now, okay, where would I buy in large numbers the daikon radishes?
True Leaf Market.
It's called True Leaf.
Yes, True Leaf Market. They're in Salt Lake City. But they just go to their website. They'll ship it to you within a day. They have the fastest customer service I've ever seen of any company on earth.
Okay.
If they don't ship it out the same day, then they have 10,000 orders coming in. They're a pretty good company. They take care of their people.
All right. Okay. Well, that sounds good. That's a good idea. Just we'll fill that extra space not with vegetables that I hope to eat, but with something that's just going to keep build the soil.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'll do that.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Anything else, Ron and Holly?
Anything else, Holly?
Not right now.
We're busy
Thank
making,
you.
we're busy making notes.
We're making notes.
Okay, fantastic, good. Let me,
Okay.
since we're talking about those cover crops, I'm gonna grab a paper real quick and give you some more ideas.
Mhm.
Okay. Let me look at this real quick. Oh yes, I knew I forgot one. You could plant beets of all kinds. You could plant sugar beets. You could plant mangles. You ever heard of a mangle?
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
plant there. It's like a beet. It probably is a beet. They're probably the same species. There's one called mangle wurzel. They get the size of a bushel basket in really good soils. They're gigantic. They're a fascinating, wonderful thing for a child to grow. But and then you just leave it there and let it decompose over the winter, and it feeds massive amounts of beneficial microbes. The other thing is plant a whole bunch of black oil sunflowers.
Oh,
And this is appropriate for both of you, for Holly and John, and both of what you guys are doing in your different places.
And they're not gonna leave seeds that is going to cause problems in future crops.
None of these will do that. You may have a few sunflowers coming up the next year, but the birds will generally eat them all before anything really hits the ground. That's been my experience.
Okay.
So it's good for the wildlife, you know. And then there's buckwheat. So when people hear wheat, they're thinking grass, but this is a broadleaf buckwheat, and it grows good in the warmer weather, so it's good to plant in the summer. So everything that I've mentioned tonight, all these would grow well together. So
Great.
buckwheat, sunflowers, sugar beets, mangels, turnips, mustards, daikon radishes, kale, collards,
mm-hmm.
all that stuff would do good together. And if you wanted to get some grass in there, it'd be awesome for your soil health, but make sure it's an annual grass. So that would be wheat, oats, barley, triticale, and rye. They're usually cold season crops. You would plant them in the fall and they grow over the winter. But for a cover crop like this, you could plant them now and they'll grow a little bit and be very beneficial for your health. So if you got a mix of like these 8 to 10 things I mentioned, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
And True Leaf will make a mix then.
No, you just buy them separate.
All right, okay.
If you're covering more than a garden plot, then you want to order it from Utah Seed. But that would be acres. But for garden size packages, True Leaf Market. For anything over a couple of acres, Utah Seed.
Okay, so I've got an area that eventually is going to become dry, that's on a slope on the hill that I don't have irrigation to. Plant any of these, and will they grow or they won't grow?
Oh, yeah, sure.
There's no water.
Yeah, that'd be
What?
good. Is that where you had that retaining wall area that you've talked about?
Yeah, well, it's further up actually. The retaining wall holds back the soil, the topsoil, and the garden. So that's created the garden, the retaining wall. I have the trees are below the retaining wall.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
this would be a good mix for that. I mean, yeah, you've showed me pictures and stuff of your yard and all that. It'd be good anywhere. The thing is, these are all annuals, so they all die and then they're gone next year. So the purpose of these is to build your soil this year so it's better next year.
okay. And I have rocks. They call them Santaquin potatoes. Lots of those.
Yeah. Okay, it was a good night. Let's wrap it up. We will be back in 3 weeks from today.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Take care.
welcome, and good night.
Thank you. Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye.